The air conditioning in the Maldives terminal had stopped working 40 minutes ago. A fly circled Maya's head twice before landing on the armrest beside her. She waved it away without looking. Her eyes were fixed on the departure board, where the word "delayed" blinked in amber next to her seaplane number. Maya pressed her boarding pass against her thigh, the paper already soft with humidity. Her silk blouse clung to her lower back. She shifted her carry-on from one shoulder to the other and watched the gate agent's mouth move silently behind the glass partition. Delayed. Another hour. Maybe 2. She thought about the resort waiting for them on the other side of that water. The overwater villa she had booked 6 months ago. The anniversary dinner she had arranged. The week of nothing she had promised herself. No surgeries, no hospital pages, no 3 a.m. emergency calls. She had cleared her schedule completely. Daniel had promised to do the same. Her phone buzzed, running behind. "Go ahead to the resort. I'll catch the next seaplane." She read the text twice. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed nothing. The woman beside her fanned herself with a magazine, the pages flapping against Maya's arm. Maya stepped sideways, closer to the window, and stared at the tarmac where heat rose in visible waves. Her phone buzzed again. "Order whatever you want for dinner. Don't wait up. Don't wait up." Their anniversary trip, and he was already telling her not to wait up. She locked the screen. The seaplane banked hard over water so clear she could see the shadow of the aircraft sliding across the reef below. Her stomach dropped. She gripped the armrest and focused on the horizon line. Below, the reef spread out like a living map. Dark patches of coral, white ribbons of sand, the impossible blues and greens of shallow water giving way to the deep navy of the open ocean. The pilot said something into his headset. She couldn't hear it over the engine noise. 20 minutes later, the pontoons touched down with a soft thud. The plane coasted toward a wooden dock where 3 staff members waited in white linen. A man in his 50s stepped forward as she climbed out. His name tag read Anand, Villa Host. "Mrs. Ashford, welcome." She didn't correct him. She was Maya Chen. She had kept her name, had fought with Daniel about it before the wedding, not because she didn't love him, but because she had built something with that name. A career, an identity, a life. But the reservation was in his name, and corrections created conversations, and she didn't want conversations. "Thank you." A golf cart materialized. Her luggage was already loaded. She hadn't seen anyone touch it. Anand gestured toward the passenger seat. "Your villa is ready. Mr. Ashford's arrival has been noted. We will ensure he reaches you upon landing." She climbed into the cart without responding. The villa sat at the end of a private pier, separated from its neighbors by 200 feet of turquoise water in every direction. Maya stood in the center of the living room. The space was vast. Teak floors, white walls, a bed visible through an open doorway. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced the sunset. The air smelled like frangipani. Her suitcase had been placed on a luggage rack. Her toiletries had been arranged in the bathroom. A bottle of champagne sweated in an ice bucket near the window. A card beside it read, "Happy anniversary, Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. May your love continue to grow." She stared at the card for a long moment. Then she walked to the glass and pressed her palm against it. The sun was dropping fast, bleeding orange and pink across the water. She watched until the colors faded to purple, then gray, then black. She pulled out her phone. No new messages. She set it face down on the credenza and went to unpack. The closet was large enough to be a room. She hung her dresses on one side, leaving the other empty. Habit. Daniel always took the right side. Daniel wasn't here. In the bathroom, her cosmetics had been arranged on the marble countertop in neat rows. Someone had folded the toilet paper into a point. Someone had placed fresh orchids in a crystal vase by the sink. Someone had set out 2 white robes on the heated towel rack, his and hers. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. The flight had done things to her skin. Her eyes looked tired. The lines at their corners seemed deeper than they had that morning. She was 43 years old, married for 15 years, a surgeon, cardiac, pediatric, with a reputation and a waiting list and a staff that depended on her. She was alone in paradise on her anniversary. She splashed water on her face and changed into a cotton dress. By 9 o'clock, she had eaten dinner alone at the restaurant nearest her villa. Grilled fish. A glass of white wine she hadn't finished. The server had asked twice if she was expecting someone. She had said no both times. The second time, she had felt the need to add an explanation. Business trip, delayed flight, he'll be here tomorrow. She hadn't. She had just shaken her head and asked for the check. Now she stood on the deck outside her villa, bare feet on the warm wood, watching the lights of other villas flicker across the water. Music drifted from somewhere, a party maybe, or just the bar. The stars were coming out. Millions of them. She had forgotten what the sky looked like away from the city lights, away from the hospital's fluorescent glare, away from the operating room where she spent so many of her nights. Her phone sat on the bed inside. She hadn't checked it in an hour. She went inside, picked it up. One message, sent at 7:43 p.m. Flight delayed again. Mechanical issue. Looking at tomorrow morning now. Sorry. She read it twice. She typed a response. Okay. She deleted it. She typed, I understand. She deleted that too. She set the phone down without replying. She changed into a cotton nightgown, brushed her teeth, turned off the lights. The bed was enormous. King-sized. Custom. The sheets were cool against her skin. She lay on the left side, her side, and stared at the ceiling fan rotating slowly above her. The right side of the bed stretched empty beside her. She thought about all the nights she had slept alone in their 12 years together, the business trips, the conferences, the late nights at the office that turned into all-nighters. She had learned to sleep in the center of the bed when he was gone, spreading out, claiming the space. But not tonight. Tonight she hugged her side of the mattress like a habit she couldn't break. She closed her eyes. Sleep came in fragments. She woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of water lapping against the stilts beneath the villa. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The darkness was different here. Thicker, deeper, without the orange glow of city lights. She reached across the mattress. Her hand found nothing but cool cotton. She pulled it back. She woke again at 4 a.m., her heart racing from a dream she couldn't remember. She lay still, listening to the silence, feeling the emptiness of the room press against her. At 5 a.m., she gave up on sleep and walked to the window. The sky was still dark, but a faint pink line was forming on the horizon. She watched the sun rise alone. At 6 a.m., gray light filtered through the windows. She showered, dressed, tried to read. Couldn't. She got up. The resort's main restaurant served breakfast starting at 7. Maya arrived at 7:15. She wore a linen dress, sandals, no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a loose knot. She hadn't bothered with the jewelry she'd packed. The diamond earrings Daniel had given her for their 10th anniversary. The pearl necklace from their honeymoon. What was the point? The hostess smiled and led her to a table overlooking the lagoon. For two? Just one. A flicker crossed the hostess's face. Professional concern, maybe. Or pity. Maya had seen that look before, on the faces of nurses when she delivered bad news, on the faces of family members when she explained the risks. She knew how to ignore it. Maya sat with her back to the room and ordered coffee. The coffee came in a silver pot with a small pitcher of cream and a bowl of raw sugar. She poured it black and drank it slowly, watching the water turn from gray to gold as the sun climbed higher. Her phone buzzed while she was spreading jam on toast. Made it onto the 9 a.m. seaplane. Should land around 10:30. Can't wait to see you. She stared at the message for a long moment. Can't wait to see you. As if he hadn't chosen to miss their flight. As if he hadn't told her not to wait up. As if this was normal. Him arriving late, her waiting alone. She thought about not responding. Then she typed, "See you soon." She sent it. She finished her toast. She ordered another coffee and drank it slowly, watching a school of fish circle beneath the restaurant's glass floor. The fish were silver, blue, darting in formation, moving like a single organism. She wondered what they were looking for. At 10:45, she was back at the villa. She had changed twice, first into a sundress, then into linen pants and a silk top, then back into the sundress. She didn't know why it mattered. She told herself it didn't. But she found herself checking her hair in the mirror, applying lip gloss, smoothing the fabric of her dress, as if she were meeting someone new, not her husband of 15 years. At 10:50, she heard the distant buzz of a seaplane engine. She walked to the window, watched the aircraft descend toward the water, its shadow racing across the lagoon. At 11:02, a golf cart appeared at the end of the pier. Daniel Ashford stepped out. He was tall, 6'2", with dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a linen shirt, untucked, and khaki shorts. He looked tired. The skin beneath his eyes was shadowed. His jaw was tight. He walked toward her across the pier, his messenger bag slung across his chest. His stride was uneven, hesitant. Maya stood in the doorway, arms crossed. He stopped 3 feet away. "Hey. Hey." A beat of silence. The water lapped against the stilts beneath them. "I'm sorry," he said. "The flight was... I know." He nodded. He shifted his weight. His hand went to the strap of his bag, then dropped. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. He dropped his bag on the floor and looked around the villa. "This is... incredible." "It is." He walked to the window, pressed his hand against the glass where hers had been the night before. "The water. It's so clear." "Yes." He turned to face her. "Maya, I ate dinner alone last night." He stopped. "I know. I'm sorry. I slept alone." "I know. This was supposed to be our anniversary trip." He exhaled, rubbed his face with both hands. The gesture was familiar. He did it when he was tired, when he was cornered. "The deal in Singapore fell apart. Literally fell apart at the last minute. I had to..." "You had to handle it." "Yes. You always have to handle it." He didn't respond. She walked past him to the window, pressed her forehead against the glass. The water sparkled beneath the midday sun. A school of fish drifted past below. "Maya." She didn't turn around. "Maya, look at me." She counted to 5. Then she turned. He was standing where she'd left him, hands at his sides, face open in a way she rarely saw anymore. The mask he wore for the boardroom, for the investors, for the world, it was slipping. "I know I've been..." His phone buzzed. He froze. It buzzed again. His jaw tightened. His hand twitched toward his pocket. "You should get that," she said. "No." "Daniel, no." He pulled the phone from his pocket and powered it off, held it up so she could see the black screen. "It's off. I'm here. I'm present. This week is about us." She watched him set the phone on the credenza, face down, beside the champagne bottle that had gone warm overnight. She wanted to believe him. She wasn't sure she could. They spent the afternoon on the deck reading in adjacent lounge chairs. He kept his phone off. She checked hers twice, out of habit, then left it inside. The sun moved across the sky, warm on her skin. A breeze stirred the pages of her book. At 4 o'clock, he set down his biography and looked over at her. "Want to go for a swim?" She looked at the water, turquoise, clear, inviting. "Sure." They walked down the private steps at the end of their deck, into water so warm it felt like stepping into air. The lagoon floor was visible below, white sand, scattered coral, fish darting in and out of the shadows. She floated on her back, staring up at the clouds. The salt water held her buoyant. The sun warmed her face. For a moment she let go of everything. The anger, the hurt, the years of accumulated disappointment, and just floated. He swam in slow circles around her. She could hear him breathing, could feel the gentle waves his movement created. "Remember Bali?" he asked. 2019. "You got stung by a jellyfish. You panicked. I didn't panic. You asked the hotel concierge if we needed to helicopter to a hospital." He laughed, a real laugh, one she hadn't heard in months. "It was a very aggressive jellyfish." She smiled. For a moment, it felt easy. Dinner was at the Overwater restaurant on the north side of the island. They sat on a private platform lit by candles, waves breaking gently against the reef 20 feet below. The night was warm. A breeze stirred the tablecloth. Daniel ordered wine, a French red she didn't recognize. When the sommelier poured it, Daniel swirled the glass, sniffed, nodded his approval. She watched him perform the ritual. He had learned it somewhere. She couldn't remember where. "To us," he said, raising his glass. She raised hers. "To us." They drank. The wine was good. Heavy. Rich. "I've been thinking," he said, "after this week. Maybe I should step back." She set her glass down. "Step back from what?" "The company. Day-to-day operations. Let Marcus take over more of it." She studied his face. The candlelight threw shadows across his cheekbones. "You've said that before." "I know. After the Tokyo merger. After the London office opened. After—" "I know." He leaned forward. His elbows touched the table. "But this time I mean it. I saw your face at the gate. When I didn't show up, Maya, I saw—" He stopped. She waited. His jaw worked. He looked away, then back. "I don't want to be that person," he said. "The one who misses everything, who's always late, who makes you sleep alone on our anniversary." She felt something tighten in her chest. Not hope, not yet. Something smaller. A crack in the wall. What would stepping back look like? "I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. This week. While we're here, I'm going to make a plan." She picked up her wine glass, took a slow sip, set it down. Okay. I'm not agreeing to anything. I'm saying I'll listen," nodded. "That's all I'm asking." The server arrived with their appetizers, seared tuna, edible flowers, a drizzle of something green. They ate in silence for a few minutes. "Remember Paris?" Daniel asked. "Which time?" "The first time. Before everything. When we stayed in that tiny hotel near Montmartre." She remembered. Peeling wallpaper, a bed that squeaked, a window that overlooked a courtyard where pigeons gathered every morning. The shower flooded. Twice. And the restaurant downstairs served the same cassoulet every night. "I loved that cassoulet." She smiled despite herself. "You ate it 5 nights in a row." 6. "We couldn't afford anything else." "Exactly." He reached across the table. His fingers brushed hers. "We didn't have anything then. And we were happy." She looked at his hand, at the gold wedding band he'd worn for 15 years. "We were. I want to get back there." "You can't. We're different people now." "I know. But maybe we can find something new. Something better." She didn't respond. The main course arrived. Lobster for her. Lamb for him. They ate. They walked back to the villa along the illuminated pier, the wood warm beneath their bare feet. The stars were impossibly bright. No moon. Just darkness and pinpricks of light. Daniel reached for her hand. She let him take it. His palm was warm. Dry. Familiar. Inside, the room had been turned down. Candles glowed on the nightstands. Rose petals dotted the white sheets. She looked at the bed. "Maya." His voice was low. She turned. He was standing close now. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. The same one he'd worn on their wedding day. The same one she had given him every Christmas since. I love you, he said. I know I haven't shown it, but I love you. She looked up at him. His eyes were dark in the candlelight, searching. She didn't say anything. She kissed him. His hands found her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. They stumbled toward the bed, shedding clothes, and for a while nothing else mattered. Afterward, she lay with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, slow. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder, circles, figure eights. We're going to be okay, he murmured. She didn't respond. She stared at the ceiling fan rotating slowly above them. She wasn't sure yet. Maya woke to an empty bed. She sat up, blinking in the gray pre-dawn light. The sheets beside her were cool, rumpled. The pillow still held the indent of his head. She pulled on a robe and padded into the living room. Daniel stood on the deck, his back to her, his phone pressed to his ear. His shoulders were rigid. His free hand gripped the railing. Told you to handle it. That's what I pay you for. She stopped in the doorway. The sky was lightening over the water, orange and pink bleeding into gray. No, that's not acceptable. Push the meeting. I don't care what time it is there. Push it. He turned. Their eyes met. His face shifted, something between guilt and defiance. His grip on the phone tightened. I'll call you back, he said, and hung up. Silence. The waves lapped against the stilts. A bird called somewhere in the distance. It was important, he said. It's always important. He walked toward her, stopping at the threshold. His bare feet left wet prints on the teak. The Singapore deal. It's falling apart again. If I don't... You turned your phone off yesterday. I did. For 6 hours. Maya. How long was it off this morning before you turned it back on? He didn't answer. His jaw worked. He looked down at the phone in his hand like he was seeing it for the first time. She nodded. I'm going to shower. She turned and walked back into the bedroom. Behind her, she heard his phone buzz again. She didn't look back. The shower was one of those rainfall designs. Water poured from the ceiling like warm rain. She stood under it for a long time, letting it run down her face, her shoulders, her back. She thought about Paris, about the tiny hotel with the leaky shower, about who they had been then. She thought about now. When she came out, toweling her hair, she heard his voice through the closed bedroom door. Need those numbers before the call. No, not tomorrow, now. She dressed slowly, a linen dress, sandals, no makeup. She didn't feel like trying. By the time she emerged, he was at the credenza. His laptop was open, 3 windows tiled on the screen. Email, a spreadsheet, something that looked like a contract. He was dressed now. Linen pants, a button-down shirt, rolled at the sleeves. I have to take a few calls, he said without looking up. Just this morning. Then I'm all yours. She towel-dried her hair. I'm going to breakfast. Wait for me. 20 minutes. I'm hungry now. She dropped the towel on the bed, grabbed her sunglasses, and walked out. The restaurant was quieter today. Only a handful of guests scattered at tables along the water. Maya chose a seat in the corner and ordered eggs, fruit, coffee. She ate slowly. The eggs were perfectly poached. The fruit was fresh, papaya, mango, something she didn't recognize. A dragon fruit, maybe. She didn't taste any of it. Around her, couples ate breakfast together. A man read out loud from his phone while his wife laughed at something on the screen. 2 women in matching sun hats debated which beach to visit first. An elderly couple held hands across the table, their wedding rings catching the light. Maya looked away. A woman sat down at the table beside hers, blonde, maybe 40, wearing a silk cover-up over a swimsuit. She had a book in one hand and a mimosa in the other. Her nails were manicured coral. Her hair was styled even at 8 a.m. Traveling alone? Maya looked up. The woman was smiling. Friendly, not intrusive. Her eyes were kind, the kind of eyes that had seen things, that understood things without needing to be told. No. My husband's working. Ah. The woman's smile tightened slightly. Tss, knowing look. Mine too. Conference call, third one since we arrived yesterday. Maya felt something shift in her chest. Recognition. Relief. She wasn't the only one. I'm Lena, the woman said. Maya. Is this your first time here? Yes. It's our fourth. Kevin, my husband, he loves it. Says it's the only place he can really relax. Lena's voice carried a note of irony. Of course, he spends half the trip on the phone. Maya's coffee had gone cold. She didn't reach for it. How do you handle it? Lena set down her mimosa, folded her hands in her lap. Honestly, I don't think about it anymore. I swim. I read. I get massages. He does what he does, she shrugged. We've been married 18 years. You learn to adapt. Maya turned her fork over in her hand. What if you don't want to adapt? Lena looked at her for a long moment. Then you have a conversation. Or you have a decision. Daniel found her at the beach an hour later. She was lying on a lounge chair under a thatched umbrella, pretending to read a novel she hadn't absorbed a single word of. The same page had been open for 20 minutes. He dropped into the chair beside her. Sand clung to his ankles. He must have walked barefoot from the villa. I'm sorry about this morning. She turned a page. The calls are done, for today, I promise. She turned another page. Maya, please look at me. She closed the book and set it on her lap, crossed her arms over the cover. His face was drawn, tired, but present. He was looking at her, really looking at her, for the first time since he'd arrived. I talked to Marcus, he said. Told him he needs to handle Singapore, that I'm unavailable until next Monday. You said that yesterday. Yesterday I meant it in theory. Today I meant it in practice. I logged out of my email, set up an auto-reply. The phone is going back off. He pulled it from his pocket, held down the power button, showed her the Apple logo fade to black. See? She looked at the dark screen. She looked at his face, the lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples, the man she had married 15 years and a lifetime ago. Daniel, I need you to understand something. I'm listening. This isn't just about today, or yesterday, or Singapore. He didn't interrupt. It's about the last 3 years, every vacation we've taken, every weekend we've planned, every dinner reservation you've been late to or missed entirely. I know. Do you? She sat up straighter. The book fell to the sand. She didn't pick it up. Because we've had this conversation before. Multiple times. And every time you promise to change, and then you don't. And I'm supposed to just adapt. His jaw tightened. Who told you that? It doesn't matter. Maya, it doesn't matter, Daniel. What matters is that I'm tired. I'm tired of sleeping alone on vacations. I'm tired of eating dinner by myself. I'm tired of being married to someone who's never actually present. Her voice had risen. A couple on. The beach nearby glanced over. A man jogging past slowed, then sped up again. She didn't care. I understand, Daniel said quietly. Do you? Yes. He reached for her hand. She let him take it, but she didn't squeeze back. I understand. And I'm not going to promise you anything right now, because you're right. My promises haven't meant much. But I'm going to show you. This week. Every day. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I choose us. She searched his face. He held her gaze. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Show me. He did. For the next 2 days he was present, fully present, phone off, laptop closed. They snorkeled on the reef, pointing out fish to each other through the water. A parrotfish with scales like crushed sapphires. A sea turtle that glided past, unbothered by their presence. She had reached for his hand underwater, and he had squeezed back, and for a moment it had felt like those first years again. They took a sunset cruise on a traditional donie, drinking wine as the sun painted the sky. The crew served them grilled prawns and fresh fruit while the boat rocked gently on the calm sea. Daniel had put his arm around her, and she had leaned into him, and neither of them had spoken for an hour. They had a couple's massage in the spa, lying side by side as warm oil was worked into their shoulders. Afterward, they sat in the steam room, and she had told him about a patient she'd lost 3 months ago. A woman her age, sudden aneurysm, nothing anyone could have done, and he had listened without interrupting, without checking his watch, without suggesting solutions. They talked, really talked, about the early years when he was still building the company and she was finishing her residency, about the nights they'd stayed up until 3 a.m. planning their future, dreaming together, about when things had started to shift, when his meetings had started to run longer, when her calls had started going to voicemail, when the distance had begun to grow. "I didn't notice it happening," he admitted one night, lying beside her in the dark. The ceiling fan clicked softly overhead. It was so gradual. 1 late night became 2. 1 missed dinner became 5. And then suddenly we were here. "I noticed," she said. "I know. I'm sorry I didn't listen." She rolled onto her side, facing him. "What's going to be different? After this week?" "I've been thinking about that." He turned to face her too. His hand found hers on the pillow between them. "I want to restructure. Bring in a COO to handle day-to-day. Focus on strategy instead of operations. It'll mean less money in the short term, but I don't care about the money." "I know. That's what I'm saying. The money was never the point for you. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that it wasn't the point for me either." She studied his face in the moonlight, the silver at his temples, the lines around his eyes. He looked older than he had a year ago. She wondered if she did, too. "You really mean it this time?" "I really mean it." She wanted to believe him. She was starting to. On the 4th morning, she woke to find him still beside her. She lay there for a moment, watching him sleep. His face was relaxed. Younger somehow. The lines around his eyes softened. His breathing was slow and even. She slipped out of bed quietly and went to make coffee. The villa had a small kitchenette, mostly for show since the resort provided everything. But she had found a French press and a bag of ground coffee in one of the cabinets. On the credenza, his phone sat where he'd left it 3 days ago. Dark. Silent. She walked past it without looking. They had breakfast on their private deck, watching the morning light turn the water from gray to blue to brilliant turquoise. "What do you want to do today?" he asked. "Nothing." He smiled. "Nothing sounds perfect." They spent the morning reading on lounge chairs. She finished her novel, actually reading it this time, absorbing the words, living in the story, and started another. He read a biography of some tech entrepreneur she'd never heard of. Every so often, he would read her a passage out loud and she would nod or laugh or roll her eyes. It felt normal. It felt right. Around noon, a staff member arrived in a golf cart. Daniel went to meet him at the end of the pier. Maya watched from the deck, her book open in her lap. They talked for several minutes. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Daniel's posture change. His shoulders tensed. His hand went to his hip. The staff member handed him something, a piece of paper maybe, or a note. She watched Daniel read it, watched his face change, watched his hand tighten on the paper until it crumpled at the edges. He walked back to the villa. "What is it?" "Nothing." "Daniel." He hesitated. His jaw worked. He looked at her, then at the floor, then out at the water. "There's been a problem." "With the company?" Marcus couldn't reach me, so he contacted the resort. Her stomach dropped. What kind of problem? I don't know yet. They said it's urgent. She set her book down. She thought about telling him no, about reminding him of his promise, about demanding that he stay, that he let someone else handle it, that for once in their marriage he choose her over work. But she saw his face, the fear in his eyes, the weight of responsibility he had carried for 20 years. You need to call him. I told you I wouldn't. Daniel, if it's urgent enough that he contacted the resort, you need to call him. He looked at her. She looked back. Go, she said. But come back. He was gone for an hour. She tried to read. She couldn't concentrate. The words blurred on the page. She tried to nap. She couldn't sleep. Her mind kept circling back to Daniel, to the phone call, to what it might mean. She went for a swim. The water was warm, but she felt cold. Hollow. She floated on her back and stared at the sky and tried not to think about anything at all. She came back inside and changed into dry clothes. She paced the villa, living room to bedroom to bathroom and back. Her footsteps echoed on the teak floors. She was brushing her hair when she heard the golf cart return. Daniel walked through the door. His face was ashen. What happened? He sat down on the edge of the bed. His hands hung between his knees. The Singapore deal. It's not just falling apart, it's collapsing, completely. And if we don't do something in the next 48 hours, we're going to lose everything we put into it. $80 million. She sat down beside him. What does do something mean? I need to fly to Singapore. Tonight. Meet with the partners. Try to salvage what we can. She felt the floor shift beneath her. Tonight. The next flight leaves in 4 hours. If I don't make it, I understand. He turned to face her. Come with me. What? Come with me. To Singapore. I know it's not the Maldives, but we'll still be together. I can work during the day and at night. At night you'll be exhausted. You'll be on calls. You'll be handling the crisis. Maya. Daniel, stop. She stood up, walked to the window. The water sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. You need to go. I know that. But I'm not going to pretend that sitting in a hotel room in Singapore while you work is the same as being here. Together. So, what are you saying? She turned around. I'm saying you should go. And I'll stay. His face fell. Maya. It's fine. I'm fine. I'll enjoy the resort. Read. Swim. You'll handle the crisis. And when you're done, you'll come back. Or I'll fly home and we'll figure out the rest from there. He stood up. Crossed to her. I don't want to leave you. I know. But I have to. I know that too. He pulled her into a hug. She let him hold her. She didn't hold him back. Her arms hung at her sides. I love you, he said into her hair. I know. She watched from the deck as the golf cart took him away. His suitcase was in the back, his messenger bag on his shoulder. He turned to look back at her. She raised her hand. He raised his. Then the cart disappeared around the bend, and she was alone. Dinner that night was silent. Maya sat at a table for one at the Overwater restaurant, picking at a salad she didn't taste. Around her, couples laughed and clinked glasses. A family with 2 small children tried to keep them from climbing over the railing. The father caught one mid-escape and swung him back into his seat. The children shrieked with delight. Maya looked away. She ordered wine, drank half the bottle, ordered another glass. The server asked if she wanted dessert. She said no. She paid the bill and walked back to the villa along the illuminated pier, her sandals dangling from one hand. She didn't remember the walk. She slept in the center of the bed. There was no point in leaving one side empty. The sheets felt cold. The room felt too big. The silence pressed against her ears. She pulled the pillow he had used closer and buried her face in it. It smelled like his shampoo. She pushed it away. The next morning, she woke late, almost 10 o'clock. Sun streamed through the windows. Her head ached from the wine. She showered, dressed, drank 3 glasses of water in quick succession. Her phone sat on the nightstand where she'd left it the night before. She picked it up. 2 messages from Daniel. The first sent at midnight. Landed safely. Meeting with partners first thing tomorrow. Miss you already. The second sent at 6 a.m. Meeting running long? Will call when I can. Love you. She typed a response. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. She stared at the screen for a moment. She added, I love you too. She deleted it. She sent the first message. She set the phone down and went to find breakfast. The restaurant was busy. A new wave of guests had arrived overnight. The resort had a check-in every 2 days, and the dining room buzzed with fresh energy. New faces, new couples, new beginnings. Maya took a small table near the back and ordered coffee. Just coffee. She wasn't hungry. She watched the other guests. A honeymoon couple who couldn't stop touching each other. An older pair who read newspapers in companionable silence. A group of friends, women her age, celebrating something. A birthday, maybe, or a divorce. They were laughing. She looked away. Lena appeared at her elbow. Mind if I sit? Maya gestured to the empty chair. Lena sat down, holding a plate loaded with fruit and pastries. Her hair was wet from a morning swim. Kevin's in a meeting, she said. Surprise, surprise. Maya managed a small smile. I saw your husband leave yesterday. Everything okay? Work emergency. Ah. Lena took a bite of croissant, chewed, swallowed. Let me guess. He'll be back tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that. Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. The ceramic was warm against her palms. I don't know when he'll be back. But you stayed. Yes. Lena studied her for a moment. Her eyes were sharp, kind but sharp. Good for you. What do you mean? I mean good for you. Not chasing him. Not dropping everything because he needed to drop everything. Staying, holding your ground. Maya hadn't thought of it that way. It didn't feel like holding my ground. It felt like being left behind. Maybe both things can be true. They spent the morning together. Lena knew the resort well. The quiet beaches, the best snorkeling spots, the bar that made the strongest margaritas. She led Maya on a tour, talking easily, asking nothing. They ended up at the spa where Lena had booked 2 adjacent massage tables. My treat, she said when Maya protested. Kevin's paying anyway. Maya lay face down on the table, feeling strong hands work the tension from her shoulders. She thought about Daniel in a conference room somewhere. Fluorescent lights, stale coffee. Men in suits arguing about money. She thought about what she was doing here. Alone. In paradise. The masseuse worked a knot out of her lower back and she gasped. Afterward, they sat in the relaxation room, wrapped in thick robes, drinking ginger tea. The room was quiet. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A fountain burbled in the corner. The air smelled like eucalyptus. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Sure. Do you love him? Your husband? Maya set down her tea. She thought about the question. Really thought about it. Not the automatic answer she would give at a dinner party. Not the polite deflection. The truth. Yes. But I don't know if love is enough anymore. Lena nodded slowly. I asked myself that question 10 years ago. After Kevin missed our son's graduation for a board meeting. Ryan walked across that stage, got his diploma, looked out into the audience, and his father wasn't there. Kevin was on a plane to Tokyo. What did you decide? I decided to stay, but I also decided to stop waiting. To build a life that didn't depend on him being present. Lena sipped her tea. I took up tennis, made friends who were available during the week, started traveling on my own, built a full life, with or without him. And it works. Most of the time. It works for us. Kevin feels less guilty because I'm not sitting around waiting for him. And I'm not resentful because I'm not putting my life on hold. Lena set her tea down. But it's not for everyone. Some people need their partner to be present. Need them to be there, physically, emotionally, and that's valid too. Maya thought about that. How do you know if it's for you? You don't. Not until you try it. And by then, Lena shrugged. By then, you've already made a choice. You've either adapted, or you've left, or you've stayed and grown bitter. There's no right answer. Just the answer that works for you. Her phone buzzed in the pocket of her robe. Daniel. Meeting went badly. Partners are holding firm. Going to need another day at least. She stared at the message. Another day. She typed, okay. Keep me posted. She didn't add anything else. That evening, she took a solo sunset cruise on the Donny. The crew, two young men who smiled constantly and spoke limited English, served her wine and pointed out dolphins playing in the wake. A pod of 4, leaping in unison, their gray bodies arcing through the golden light. The sun dropped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and pink. She took photos on her phone. The colors, the water, the endless sky. She didn't know who she would show them to. Back at the villa, she changed into a nightgown and sat on the deck, watching the stars emerge, one by one, then dozens, then hundreds. The sky here was different, bigger, fuller. Her phone rang. Daniel. She let it ring 3 times before answering. Hey, hey. His voice was tired, strained, the sound of exhaustion. How was your day? Fine. Spa. Sunset cruise. The usual. A pause. I'm sorry I'm not there. I know. The partners are being impossible. They're threatening to pull out entirely. We're scrambling to find alternatives. Daniel, I know you don't want to hear about this. I want you to understand why I can't come back yet. I understand. Another pause. She could hear voices in the background, other people, other problems. Do you? Because you don't sound like you do. She felt something flare in her chest. Anger, maybe. Or just exhaustion. What do you want me to say? That it's fine? That I'm happy you're in Singapore while I'm here alone? That I don't mind sleeping by myself for the 4th night in a row? Maya, you wanted to show me, Daniel. This week. You wanted to show me what it looked like when you chose us, and instead you chose work. Again. Silence. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. She heard him exhale, a long, slow breath. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay. Maya, I love you. She didn't respond. She hung up. Sleep didn't come. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the water lap against the stilts. At 2 a.m., she got up, poured herself a glass of whiskey from the minibar, sat on the deck in the dark. The stars were impossibly bright. No moon, just darkness and light. She thought about 18 years, about all the dinners alone, all the vacations cut short, all the promises made and broken. She thought about Lena, who had learned to adapt, who had built a life that didn't depend on Kevin being present. She thought about what it would mean to not adapt. The whiskey burned going down. She poured another glass. The next morning she woke with a headache and a decision. She showered, dressed, packed half her suitcase. Then she sat down at the credenza and opened her laptop. She searched for flights, Maldives to New York. The next available departed at 6 p.m. with a connection in Dubai. She booked it. One way. Her phone buzzed while she was eating breakfast. Daniel. Partners agreed to a modified deal. Still not great, but better than losing everything. Should be able to wrap up by end of day tomorrow. We'll try to catch a flight back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. Their last night. The night before they were supposed to fly home together. She typed, I'm leaving today. Flight at 6. We'll be home tomorrow morning. She watched the 3 dots appear. Disappear. Appear again. What? Why? I need to go. We can talk when you get back." Her phone rang immediately. She watched his name flash on the screen. The photo of him that came up, a candid shot from last year's holiday party, him laughing at something she'd said. She let it go to voicemail. She spent the morning on the beach. She didn't swim. She didn't read. She just sat under the umbrella, watching the waves, feeling the sun on her skin. A family walked past. Mother, father, 2 kids. The mother held the younger one's hand while the father chased the older one into the surf. Their laughter carried across the sand. Maya looked away. Lena found her around noon. "I heard you're leaving early." News traveled fast. The staff must have told her. Or maybe Kevin had heard something. Yes. Because of Daniel? Because of a lot of things. Lena sat down on the lounge chair beside her. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses. Her toenails were freshly painted coral. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice? Can I stop you?" Lena smiled slightly. "Probably not." She turned to face Maya, pushing her sunglasses up onto her forehead. "Whatever you're feeling right now, the anger, the disappointment, the loneliness, it's valid. All of it. But don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions." Maya's jaw tightened. "It's not temporary. This has been building for years." "I know. I could see it on your face the first morning we met. But running away isn't the answer." "I'm not running away. I'm leaving." "What's the difference?" Maya didn't have an answer. She stared at the water, at the endless blue stretching to the horizon. "I don't know," she said finally. "I just know I can't stay here. Not alone. Not anymore." Lena was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you're braver than I was. When Kevin missed our anniversary, our 10th, I stayed. I pretended it was fine. I told myself it didn't matter." She paused. "It took me 5 more years to realize it did matter. By then, I'd already made my peace with it. Or given up. I'm not sure which." Maya looked at her. "Do you regret it? Staying?" "Some days. Most days, no, but I think about it. What my life would have looked like if I'd left. Who I would have become." Lena shrugged. "You can't know the answers to those questions until you live them." She stood up, brushed the sand from her cover-up. "Whatever you decide, Maya, I hope you find what you're looking for." She walked away down the beach. Maya watched her go. At 3 p.m., a golf cart arrived to take her to the seaplane dock. She tipped the villa host, a young woman named Sarah who had brought her fresh flowers every day and asked nothing in return. She thanked the staff who had gathered to see her off. She climbed into the cart with her suitcase and her carry-on. The driver pulled away. She didn't look back at the villa where she had slept alone for 4 of the past 6 nights. She didn't look at the water or the reef or the sky turning golden in the afternoon light. She looked straight ahead. The seaplane was already waiting. She climbed aboard, buckled in. The pilot said something about flight time and weather conditions. She didn't hear it. The engine roared. The plane taxied across the lagoon, picking up speed, then lifted into the air. She watched through the window as the resort grew smaller and smaller. The villas on their stilts, the white sand beach, the cluster of thatched roofs where she had eaten dinner alone, until it was just a speck in the endless blue. And then it was gone. The flight to Dubai was 8 hours. She didn't sleep. She watched 3 movies without absorbing any of them. A romantic comedy that made her cry, an action film she couldn't follow, a documentary about penguins that she turned off halfway through. She drank 2 glasses of wine and ate a meal that tasted like cardboard. The cabin was dim. Most passengers were sleeping. She stared out the window at the clouds below, wondering what Daniel was doing right now. Whether he was still in meetings, whether he was thinking about her, whether he was angry, whether he was scared. During the layover in Dubai, she bought a coffee and found a seat near her gate. She pulled out her phone. 14 missed calls from Daniel, 23 text messages. She scrolled through the messages without reading them, just seeing the timestamps. 4:32 p.m., 4:47 p.m., 5:15 p.m., 6 p.m., 7:30 p.m. They went on and on, spanning hours. She didn't open any of them. She put the phone away and drank her coffee. The flight to New York was another 14 hours. She slept fitfully, waking every few hours to shift positions, to drink water, to stare at the flight tracker on the screen in front of her. Distance remaining, 8,247 miles. Distance remaining, 5,103 miles. Distance remaining, 2,891 miles. She thought about what she would say when Daniel got home. She rehearsed conversations in her head, accusations, explanations, apologies. None of them felt right. New York was cold. She stepped out of JFK into a gray December morning, the air sharp against her face after a week in the tropics. Her thin resort clothes were no match for the wind that cut through the taxi line. She wrapped her arms around herself and shuffled forward in the queue. Around her, people in heavy coats and scarves moved with purpose, heads down, phones out. She had forgotten how fast people moved in New York, how cold everything felt, not just the air, but the faces, the conversations, the energy. She hailed a cab and gave the driver her address, their address, and sat in the back seat watching the city slide past. The familiar streets, the familiar buildings, the familiar gray sky that seemed to press down on everything. She passed a coffee shop where she and Daniel had had their first date, a bookstore where they had spent rainy Sundays in the early years, a restaurant where he had proposed 15 years ago with a ring he couldn't afford and a speech he had practiced for weeks. She had missed this city, and she hadn't. She wasn't sure what she felt anymore. The apartment was empty when she arrived. The doorman, Marco, who had worked the building for 15 years and knew everyone's business without ever saying a word, looked surprised to see her. "Mrs. Ashford, I thought you weren't back until Friday?" Change of plans. He studied her face for a moment. She wondered what he saw. He didn't ask questions. He just held the door and told her to have a good day. She took the elevator to the 15th floor. Let herself in. Stood in the entryway, suitcase at her feet, looking around at the space she had shared with Daniel for 12 years. The modern furniture they had picked out together. The leather sectional where they had watched 1,000 movies, the glass coffee table that she kept warning him not to put his feet on, the armchair by the window where she liked to read while he worked late. The art on the walls, his taste mostly, contemporary abstracts that had seemed cold to her at first, but had grown to feel like home. The photos on the mantel, their wedding, their honeymoon in Italy, the trip to Machu Picchu 3 years ago. The apartment smelled stale, empty, like a museum after hours. She walked to the mantel, picked up the wedding photo. She looked so young. They both did. Her dress had been simple, no train, no veil, and his suit had been too big in the shoulders. They hadn't had money for alterations. They hadn't cared. They were smiling, really smiling. The kind of smile that came from the bones. She remembered that day, how nervous he had been, how his hands had shaken when he read his vows, how he had cried during her speech and tried to pretend he wasn't. She remembered thinking, this is it. This is the person I want to grow old with. She set the photo face down. She spent the rest of the day unpacking and doing laundry. Mundane tasks, normal tasks, the kind of tasks that didn't require thinking. She put her resort clothes in the hamper and her toiletries back in the bathroom cabinet. She threw away the expired milk in the refrigerator and watered the plants on the windowsill. The ficus that Daniel had bought her for her birthday, the succulent collection she had started during the pandemic, the orchid that kept dying and coming back. At 5 p.m., she made herself tea and sat at the kitchen counter, watching the light fade over the city. At 6 p.m., she heated up leftover soup and ate it, standing at the counter, too tired to sit down properly. At 7 p.m., her phone rang. Daniel. She took a breath, let it out. She answered. I'm home. I know. The doorman told me. His voice was strained, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Maya, what's going on? I needed to leave. Why didn't you talk to me first? Would it have mattered? Silence. Of course it would have mattered. You're my wife. Am I? The words came out before she could stop them. Because for the past 3 years, I've felt like I'm just someone who lives in your house, someone you visit between meetings, someone you make promises to and then forget about. That's not fair. It's the truth, she heard him exhale. When do you land? Tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. I'll be asleep. I know. A pause. Maya, we need to talk. Really talk, not on the phone. I know. Will you be there when I get home? She looked around the empty apartment. I don't know. She slept in the guest room that night. The master bedroom, their bedroom, felt too big, too empty, too full of memories. She lay in the narrow guest bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city outside. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep. She got up, made tea, sat at the kitchen counter in the dark. The city lights flickered through the window. A siren wailed in the distance. The refrigerator hummed. She had sat in this spot 1,000 times before, waiting for Daniel to come home from a late meeting, waiting for a surgery to be scheduled, waiting for life to happen. She was tired of waiting. Her phone lay beside her. She picked it up, scrolled through Daniel's messages. Please answer the phone. Maya, this is ridiculous. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I know I keep saying that, but I'm sorry. I should have handled this differently. I should have sent Marcus to Singapore. I should have stayed. Please call me. I love you. I know you don't want to hear that right now, but I love you. I'm not giving up on us. I won't. She read them twice, then a third time. She thought about all the messages he had sent over the years, the apologies, the promises, the declarations of love. She had believed them every time, had let them smooth over the hurt, had told herself that this time would be different. She wasn't sure she could believe them anymore. She set the phone down. She sipped her tea. She thought about what it would mean to stay, to continue living this life of half-presence and broken promises, to adapt like Lena had, to build a life that didn't depend on Daniel being present. She thought about what it would mean to leave, to start over at 43, to divide up 15 years of accumulated life, the furniture, the art, the memories, to sleep alone not just on vacations but forever. Neither option felt right. Both options felt terrifying. She finished her tea and made another cup. Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to gray the sky. Daniel's key turned in the lock at 7:15 a.m. Maya was sitting on the couch, still in her pajamas, a cold cup of coffee on the table in front of her. She hadn't slept. She hadn't showered. She had spent the last 3 hours staring at the wall, listening to the sounds of the city waking up outside. The door opened. He stepped inside. He looked terrible. Rumpled clothes, the same ones he'd been wearing when he left the Maldives, she realized. Dark circles under his eyes so deep they looked like bruises, stubble that had gone past fashionable into unkempt. His hair was uncombed, his shoulders were hunched. He stopped when he saw her. You're here. I'm here. He closed the door, set down his bag, walked into the living room but didn't sit. His eyes moved across the room, the cold coffee, the blanket she'd pulled around herself, the untouched stack of mail on the side table. Can I... Sit down, Daniel. He sat. The armchair across from her, the one he always sat in when they watched television together, the one that had been empty for so many nights while she watched, alone. Silence. The clock on the mantel ticked. A car horn honked somewhere outside. I don't know where to start, he said. Start with Singapore. He blinked. The deal. Did you save it? Most of it. We'll lose about 30 million, but the partnership is intact. Good. More silence. She watched his hands. They were resting on his knees, fingers spread, palms down. He was trying to look calm, but his left thumb was tapping against his leg, a nervous habit he'd had since she'd known him. "Maya, let me talk first." He closed his mouth. She took a breath, let it out. "I've been thinking. A lot. On the plane. Last night. This morning. About us. About what went wrong. About whether it can be fixed." He leaned forward. His eyes were fixed on her face. And I don't know." She picked up her coffee cup, then set it back down without drinking. The coffee was ice cold. She'd made it hours ago and forgotten about it. "I love you, Daniel. I do. But love isn't enough. Not anymore. Not when I feel like I'm living alone, even when you're standing right beside me." "I know." "Do you?" "Because you've said that before. After Tokyo, after London. After every missed dinner and every canceled weekend and every night I fell asleep waiting for you to come home." Her voice was steady, calm. She had spent hours preparing for this, hours deciding what she needed to say. "This is different." "Why?" He was quiet for a moment. His jaw worked. His thumb stopped tapping. "Because I almost lost the deal. And the whole time I was in Singapore fighting to save it, all I could think about was you. Alone in that villa, waiting for me. And I realized," he stopped, swallowed. "I realized that if I had lost the deal, I would have survived. But if I lose you, I won't." She felt something crack in her chest. A wall she'd been building. A defense she'd been preparing. "Daniel, I'm serious, Maya. I know I've made promises before. I know my promises don't mean much to you anymore. But I'm not making a promise. I'm telling you a fact. I am going to change. I'm going to hire a COO. I'm going to step back from day-to-day operations. I'm going to be present, really present. Not because I should, because I have to, because losing you isn't an option." His eyes were wet. She had never seen him cry before. Not at his father's funeral. Not when the company nearly went under in the early years. Not once in 18 years of marriage. He was crying now. "I want to believe you." "I know. But I don't know if I can. I know that too." He stood up, crossed to the couch, sat down beside her, not touching. "You don't have to believe me. Not today, not tomorrow. You just have to give me a chance to show you." She looked at him. His face was open, vulnerable. The mask he wore for the boardroom, for the investors, for the world. It was gone. "One chance," she said. "That's all I'm asking for. If you break it, I won't. If you break it, Daniel, I'm gone. For real. No more second chances. No more promises. I'll be done." "I understand." She held his gaze. He held hers. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The city hummed outside. The clock ticked on the mantel. The morning light crept slowly across the floor. She reached out, took his hand. He squeezed back. The winter light filtered through the apartment windows, gray and cold. They sat together on the couch, hands intertwined, not speaking. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, sirens, traffic, the distant rumble of the subway. Inside, it was quiet. Maya rested her head against Daniel's shoulder. He was warm, solid, present. He kissed the top of her hair. Neither of them made promises. Neither of them made plans. They just sat together, present in the fragile silence of a beginning. The next few weeks were careful. They moved around each other like people learning a new dance, testing boundaries, finding rhythms, rebuilding what had been broken. Daniel kept his word about the phone. He left it in the kitchen most days, checking it only twice. Once in the morning, once in the evening. He delegated meetings. He forwarded emails to Marcus. He learned to say, "That can wait." Maya watched. She waited. She didn't trust it yet, couldn't trust it yet, but she noticed. She noticed when he chose dinner with her over a conference call. She noticed when he declined a last-minute trip to London. She noticed when he sat with her on Sunday mornings, reading the paper instead of disappearing into his office. She noticed. And slowly, the knot in her chest began to loosen. 3 months later, Maya woke to the smell of coffee. She opened her eyes. Daniel's side of the bed was empty, but the sheets were still warm. Sunlight streamed through a gap in the curtains. She lay there for a moment, listening to the sounds of the apartment. Daniel moving in the kitchen, water running, a cabinet closing, normal sounds, ordinary sounds. She had forgotten how much she loved ordinary. She got up, pulled on a robe, padded into the hallway. In the kitchen, Daniel stood at the counter, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He was dressed casually, jeans, a sweater she'd bought him for Christmas, with nowhere to be. "Good morning. Good morning." He handed her a mug, kissed her forehead. "What do you want to do today?" She took a sip, thought about it. "Nothing." He smiled. "Nothing sounds perfect." The first month had been hard. Daniel had struggled with the transition, handing over responsibilities he'd held for 20 years, watching others make decisions he would have made differently, learning to trust that the company would survive without his constant attention. There had been moments when she'd seen him reach for his phone, then stop. Moments when he'd paced the apartment like a caged animal, itching to do something, to fix something, to be useful. She had watched. She had waited. She hadn't said anything. He had to find his own way through. And slowly, he had. They spent the morning on the couch, reading. She finished a novel, a thriller she'd started the night before, and he flipped through an architecture magazine, pointing out buildings he found interesting. Around noon, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, set it aside without answering. She watched him. "Everything okay?" "Marcus can handle it." He picked up his magazine. She felt something warm spread through her chest. Not hope, not anymore. Something better. Trust. That afternoon, they walked through Central Park. The trees were bare, but the sun was bright and the air had a crispness that felt clean after the stuffiness of the apartment. They entered at Columbus Circle and walked north, past the skating rink where couples glided in slow circles, past the sheep meadow where a few brave souls were already picnicking despite the chill, past the Bethesda fountain where a street musician played guitar for tips. They walked hand in hand, not talking much, past the joggers and the dog walkers and the families with strollers, past the street musicians and the pretzel vendors and the tourists taking photographs. They didn't need to talk. They were just together. Maya thought about all the times she had walked through this park alone, on her way to work, on her way home from work, on weekends when Daniel was in the office and she needed to get out of the apartment. She had always loved this park, the way it carved out space in the middle of the city, the way it insisted on slowness in a place that was always rushing. But she had never loved it as much as she loved it now, walking beside her husband, his hand warm in hers. At a bench near the reservoir, they sat down to rest. Maya watched a group of ducks paddle across the water. The sun caught their feathers, turning them iridescent. "I was thinking," Daniel said, "about the Maldives. We never got to finish our anniversary trip." She turned to face him. "Are you suggesting a do-over?" "I'm suggesting a continuation. Next month, same resort, same villa. But this time," he squeezed her hand, "this time I won't leave." She studied his face. "You're serious?" "I already made the reservation. Phone staying home." She felt a smile tug at the corner of her mouth. "Okay. Okay? Let's go." That night, they had dinner at a small Italian restaurant near their apartment, the kind of place with candles on the tables and wine lists written in chalk on a blackboard. They had been coming here for years. It was where Daniel had proposed, actually, at the corner table by the window. The owner, a heavy-set man named Giuseppe, greeted them like family. The usual table? Please. They sat by the window. Outside, people hurried past in the March chill, collars turned up against the wind. They ordered pasta, carbonara for him, cacio e pepe for her, a bottle of Chianti they'd discovered on their honeymoon, bread warm from the oven. They talked about nothing important, about a book she was reading, about a documentary he'd seen, about plans for the summer, maybe the coast of Maine, maybe a cabin in Vermont. They hadn't decided yet. They didn't need to. They shared a tiramisu for dessert, passing the plate back and forth, their forks crossing. Daniel's phone sat in his pocket, silent. He didn't check it once. Maya noticed. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She just smiled and took another bite of tiramisu. Later, walking home, Maya slipped her arm through his. The city was quieter now. Most of the restaurants were closing. A few couples walked past arm in arm. A dog walker led a pack of 5 dogs down the sidewalk, leashes tangled. Thank you. For what? For today. For the last 3 months. For trying. He stopped, turned to face her. The streetlight cast shadows across his face. He looked different than he had 3 months ago. Calmer, more at peace. The permanent furrow between his brows had started to soften. I should be thanking you. For giving me a chance. For staying. She looked up at him. The streetlight caught his eyes. I almost didn't. I know. I had 1 foot out the door. I know. But you showed me. She reached up, touched his face. You actually showed me. He leaned down, kissed her softly. I'll keep showing you. Every day. For as long as you'll let me. She smiled against his lips. I'll hold you to that. They walked the rest of the way home in comfortable silence. Inside, the apartment was warm and quiet. Daniel hung up their coats while Maya kicked off her shoes. The familiar routines of home. The small rituals of a shared life. Nightcap? He asked. Just tea. He went to the kitchen. She went to the bedroom to change. In the closet, she reached for her pajamas and her hand brushed against something silky. She pulled it out. The nightgown she had worn in the Maldives. The one she had slept in alone for 4 nights. The one that had felt like armor against loneliness. She held it for a moment. Felt the fabric against her fingers. Then she put it back. Chose something else. Some memories were better left in the dark. In bed, Daniel curled around her, his arm across her waist. Maya. I love you. She smiled into the darkness. I know. I'm not going anywhere. I know that too. He kissed the back of her neck. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without wondering if she would wake up alone. Outside, the city hummed. Sirens, traffic, the distant pulse of life. Inside, the apartment was still. 2 people, breathing softly, together, the way it was supposed to be. Spring came slowly that year. March brought rain, cold, gray, relentless. The kind of rain that seeped into everything, that made the city feel smaller and darker. Maya and Daniel spent those wet days indoors, reading on the couch, cooking dinner together, watching old movies they'd seen a dozen times before. April brought tentative sunshine. The trees in Central Park started to bud. The sidewalk cafes opened their patios. People emerged from their apartments, blinking in the light as if coming out of hibernation. May brought warmth that felt like a promise. Warmth that said, the worst is over. The best is yet to come. Maya stood on the balcony of their apartment, watching the sun set over the Hudson. The city stretched out below her, the buildings, the parks, the ribbon of river catching the last light. She had lived here for 20 years, had built a life here, a career, a marriage. She had almost thrown it all away. Daniel came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Ready? Almost. Their suitcases sat by the front door. Packed. Tagged. Waiting. Tomorrow morning they would fly to the Maldives, the same resort. The same villa at the end of the pier. But different. Everything was different now. She turned in his arms. Thank you. For what? For keeping your word. He smiled. That smile she had fallen in love with 15 years ago. The smile that had made her say yes when he proposed in that little Italian restaurant. The smile that had been missing for so many years, buried under stress and deadlines and the weight of a company. Always. She kissed him. Behind them, the sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. They ordered takeout for dinner. Thai food from the place around the corner. Pad Thai and green curry and spring rolls that were always too greasy but somehow perfect. They ate on the couch, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to. His phone sat on the kitchen counter, charging. He didn't glance at it once. That night, in bed, Maya lay with her head on Daniel's chest, listening to his heartbeat. Maya? I want you to know something. She lifted her head, looked at him. What? These last few months, being present, being here, with you. He paused. It's been the best few months of my life. She felt her throat tighten. Daniel, I mean it. The company, the deals, the money, none of it means anything without you. I know that now. Really know it. She reached up, touched his face. I believe you. And she did. They flew out the next morning. The flight was long, 14 hours with a connection in Dubai, but Maya didn't mind. She slept for some of it, her head on Daniel's shoulder. She read for some of it, a novel she'd been meaning to finish for months. She watched a documentary about coral reefs and thought about the water waiting for them on the other side. Daniel held her hand during takeoff and landing. He didn't check his phone. Not once. The seaplane touched down on crystal clear water. Maya stepped out onto the dock and inhaled deeply. The air smelled like salt and frangipani. The sun was warm on her face. The water below was that impossible shade of turquoise she remembered, clear enough to see the fish darting between the coral. Daniel came up beside her. Welcome back, she smiled. It feels different this time. It is different. They walked toward the golf cart waiting at the end of the dock. Anand was there, the same villa host who had greeted her alone 6 months ago. His face lit up when he saw them together. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. Welcome back. This time, Maya didn't correct him. The villa was exactly as she remembered. Teak floors, white walls, the bed visible through the open doorway, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water. But the memory that hit her wasn't of the beauty. It was of the loneliness. She stood in the center of the room, looking at the bed where she had slept alone for 4 nights. At the credenza where Daniel's phone had sat, dark and silent, while he was in Singapore. At the window where she had pressed her forehead against the glass and watched the sun set alone. Daniel came up behind her. Maya? She didn't answer. He put his hand on her shoulder. Are you okay? She turned to face him. I was just remembering. I know. His eyes were soft, sad. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. She reached up and touched his face. Just be here. I am. Stay. I will. She kissed him, and the memory of loneliness began to fade. But this time, Daniel set their bags down and turned to her. What do you want to do first? Nothing. He grinned. Nothing sounds perfect. They spent the afternoon on the deck, reading, napping, swimming in the impossibly blue water. At one point, Daniel disappeared into the villa and came back with a bottle of champagne, the same bottle that had been waiting for them 6 months ago, warm and unopened. The staff had replaced it with a fresh one. 2-hour anniversary, he said, popping the cork. Finally. She laughed, actually laughed. A real laugh that came from somewhere deep. It's a bit late. Better late than never. They drank champagne in the afternoon sun, their feet dangling over the edge of the deck, fish darting in the crystal water below. At sunset, they sat on the edge of the platform, watching the sky turn colors. The sun dropped toward the horizon, painting everything gold and pink and orange. The water reflected the colors back, doubling them until it seemed like they were floating in the middle of the sky itself. Daniel reached for her hand. She let him take it. Maya. I'm glad you stayed. She looked at him. His face was calm, peaceful, present. The furrow between his brows was gone. The tension in his jaw had softened. He looked younger than he had in years. So am I. That night, they had dinner at the Overwater restaurant, the same table where they had sat 6 months ago. The same candles, the same view, the same waves breaking gently against the reef below. But different. Everything was different. The waiter brought menus. Daniel barely glanced at his before setting it aside. His phone was back at the villa, off, forgotten. I'll have whatever she's having, he said. Maya smiled. You hate fish. I'm learning to like it, she ordered for both of them. Grilled mahi-mahi, a green salad, roasted vegetables. The food came. They ate slowly, savoring each bite. They didn't talk about work. They didn't talk about the company or Singapore or the deal that had almost cost them everything. They talked about the future, about the trip to Maine they were planning for summer, about a cooking class Maya wanted to take, about whether they should get a dog. She wanted one. He was resistant, but she could see him softening. Maybe a small one, he said. Something that doesn't shed. She laughed. All dogs shed. Then we'll hire someone to vacuum. They ordered wine, clinked glasses. To us, Daniel said. To us. They drank, and for the first time in years, Maya felt like she wasn't alone. Later, walking back along the illuminated pier, she stopped. What is it? Daniel asked. She looked out at the water. Dark, endless, full of stars. I was just thinking. About the last time we were here. How different it felt. He stepped closer. And now? She turned to face him. Now it feels like I'm finally on vacation with my husband. He smiled. You are. She kissed him. Long, slow, tender. When they pulled apart, she took his hand and led him toward the villa. Inside, the bed waited. Big enough for two. Tonight, she wouldn't sleep alone. She lay curled against him, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Outside, the waves lapped softly against the stilts. Inside, everything was quiet. Maya. This is how it's going to be from now on. I know. No more missed dinners, no more canceled plans, no more sleeping alone. I know. He kissed her forehead. Get some rest. We have a whole week ahead of us. She smiled into the darkness. A whole week? Maybe longer, if you want. Let's start with the week. He laughed softly. Deal. She closed her eyes. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. The ceiling fan turned slowly overhead. The water whispered beneath them. The days that followed were simple. They woke late. They ate breakfast on the deck. They swam in the lagoon and read books and napped in the afternoon sun. On the third day, they took a snorkeling trip to a nearby reef. The guide pointed out manta rays and sea turtles and a school of fish so vast it blocked out the sun. Maya floated on her back in the warm water and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. On the fourth day, they had a private dinner on the beach. The staff built a fire in a stone pit and served them grilled lobster and champagne while the stars emerged overhead. Daniel told her about his plans for the company, how he was restructuring, how Marcus was growing into the role, how he was finally learning to let go. She listened. She asked questions. She believed him. On the fifth day, they did nothing at all. They lay in bed until noon, then ordered room service and ate croissants in their pajamas. They watched the boats drift past the window. They talked about nothing important. Old movies they loved, books they wanted to read, places they wanted to visit someday. It was, Maya thought, exactly what she had wanted all along. Not grand gestures, not expensive gifts, not vacations to exotic places, just time, just presence, just her husband, here, with her. On the sixth night, they ran into Lena at the restaurant. She was alone. Kevin had been called away for an emergency board meeting, she said with a rueful smile. But she didn't seem upset. She seemed resigned, adapted. "I heard you came back," Lena said, her eyes moving between Maya and Daniel. "Together this time." "Together," Maya confirmed. Lena's gaze lingered on their intertwined hands. On the way, Daniel's arm rested on the back of Maya's chair, on the ease between them. Lena smiled. "Good. I'm glad." She said goodbye and walked back to her villa alone, her white dress billowing in the evening breeze. Maya watched her go. "Friend of yours?" Daniel asked. "Something like that." She thought about what Lena had told her all those months ago, about adapting, about building a life that didn't depend on her husband being present, about making choices and living with them. Maya had almost made that choice. She was glad she didn't have to. On the last morning, she woke early. Daniel was still sleeping beside her, his face relaxed, his breathing deep and even. She slipped out of bed and walked to the window. The sun was just coming up, painting the water gold and pink. A heron stood motionless on a nearby rock, waiting for fish. The world was quiet and still and beautiful. She thought about the first time she had stood at this window. Alone. Waiting. Uncertain. She thought about all the nights she had slept in that bed with only the sound of her own breathing for company. She thought about how close she had come to leaving. How close she had come to giving up. How close she had come to walking away from 15 years of marriage because she couldn't bear to sleep alone anymore. And she thought about how glad she was that she hadn't. "Hey." She turned. Daniel was awake, propped up on one elbow, watching her. "Hey, what are you thinking about?" She walked back to the bed, sat down on the edge. About how different this trip was, compared to last time. He reached for her hand. "I'm sorry about last time." "I know. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." She smiled. "You don't have to make it up to me. You just have to be here. I'm here." "I know." She leaned down and kissed him. They packed their bags slowly. There was no rush. Their flight didn't leave until evening. At noon, the golf cart arrived to take them to the main island for lunch. Maya looked back at the villa one last time. The teak deck, the private steps into the water, the bed she had finally slept in without being alone. Then she turned and climbed into the cart beside her husband. The seaplane lifted off at 4 p.m. Maya watched through the window as the resort grew smaller below them. The villa's on. Their stilts, the white sand beach, the endless expanse of turquoise water. She had arrived here alone 6 months ago. Lonely. Angry. Afraid. She was leaving with her husband beside her. Content. Hopeful. Whole. Daniel took her hand. "Ready to go home?" She looked at him. Yes. And Maya Chen Ashford, for the first time in years, fell asleep on the plane, knowing exactly where she belonged. The vacation ended. But the marriage continued. And this time, she didn't sleep alone. Not once. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Mr. Douglas Tales, where powerful stories unfold one moment at a time.